Right now, the National Weather Desk, flood fears. After days of rain, rivers are rising in the Northeast.
Skinny Atlas Creek here is normally a very quiet tributary. They say last night it flooded higher than they had ever seen.
Trees were blown down in Alabama thanks to an area of low pressure known as a wake low.
And that pressure gradient is what gives us those strong winds. They can be very brief, but damaging.
Why we could see a hurricane form before the official start of the season. In North Carolina, fires are now burning underground, presenting new challenges for firefighters.
They can be up to about 8 feet deep.
A look at the difference between tornadoes and microbursts.
The biggest danger posed by microbursts is their sudden, sneaky formation.
And why allergy season could be getting longer and more intense.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. It appears our very busy spring of severe weather will continue later today with more than 60 million Americans facing at least a small risk of storms. The Storm Prediction Center issued level 2 out of 5 alerts for 2 areas of the country. The first is centered over Tennessee, and it includes Nashville, Knoxville, Winston-Salem, North Carolina as well. The second is in Texas along the Rio Grande River. Severe wind gusts and large hail are primary hazards. Meantime, parts of the mid-Atlantic have been in drought conditions for much of 2025. The Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania has been low, but is now flowing faster thanks to recent rain. It will crest just above action stage tonight. That's the stage when preparations for possible flooding should begin. The river has been murkier as swollen streams are dumping debris into the river the past few days. About 250 miles to the north, though, heavy rain triggered flooding earlier this week. Brandon Roth is just outside Syracuse with details.
I moved out here in 1963 and I've never seen the creek up this high.
The water levels here rising so quickly, firefighters say several homes had to be evacuated.
We were activated for multiple water emergencies. Around 10 o'clock, we put the state of emergency out.
Believe it or not, residents say Skinny Atlas Creek here is normally a very quiet tributary.
Usually it's only about a 12 feet wide water channel flowing through here. And this is the worst it's ever been in 33 years I've ever seen it. So,
wow,
it's absolutely mind-blowing.
The Mechanic Street Bridge in the center of town also flooded. Fortunately, no one was injured, but the fire department says it could take some time to assess the damage and several days at least for things to return to normal. In Jordan, Brandon Roth reporting.
Not all flood alerts are the same, so it's important to know what type a meteorologist is discussing. Knowing the difference could help keep you safe. Here's meteorologist Violet Skybor.
So before this all starts, we issue what's called flood watches. That means to stay aware when conditions are favorable for flooding to occur, but it's not actively occurring yet. When it does look to occur or is imminent, that's when we switch to flood warnings. That's when you need to move to higher ground, and that means that the flooding is already happening. But there are different types of warnings, 4 to be exact. A flood warning, which is usually a large area county-wide, they issue these for a slow onset and long duration. River flooding is more specific. They issue this for a specific river, localized flooding just along the river banks, and that means flood is about to occur or is already occurring. Sometimes they issue these ahead of time just in anticipation of river flooding. There's also aerial floodings. This is also very localized. They issue this for street pooling, urban flooding, creek flooding, and these are usually a long duration flood event as well. This comes after heavy rainfall leads to those areas piling up with water. And the 4th warning is the most dangerous. A flash flood warning. This is a localized area under the heaviest pockets of rainfall. So this happens during that very heavy rain coming down. It's a fast onset and a high impact. Homes and roads become flooded very, very quickly. And even higher than that, we could see a flash flood emergency. This is catastrophic damage, severe threat to life, and exceedingly rare. So we really don't see these too often. But flash flood warnings still just as dangerous. So take them seriously when warnings are issued. Either stay inside, move to higher ground, or don't drive through those areas when warnings are issued.
Recent trends suggest the Atlantic hurricane season could start early this year. Officially, the season runs from June 1st through November 30th. But some recent forecasting models suggest an area of low pressure could develop in the Western Caribbean late next week. It's known as the Central American Gyre. At least one named storm has formed before June 1st, and 7 of the last 10 years. Early storm activity has largely been due to unusually warm waters in the Atlantic, Caribbean, or Gulf basins during the spring. Something called a wake low moved through Mississippi and Alabama Wednesday morning. It created strong wind gusts that knocked out power to thousands and left behind downed and damaged trees. Meteorologist Evan Chikvera explains the science behind wake lows.
Here's a look at the radar loop. Now, at first you might not notice anything, but you look and there's 2 areas where the backside of the rain cave in, just south of Tuscaloosa and then off to the north, right around the Coleman area. And essentially, these are 2 smaller lows. You know, we have big low pressure centers that have storm systems. You also get these microscale or mesoscale. It just means on the smaller side that form on the back edge of showers. So how does it all work? Well, we had our swath of rain, okay? Out in front of it, we're warm. Out behind it, we're cool. Low pressure associated with warm air, and you have cooler air and a high pressure behind it. So as this line of showers evolves, we eventually develop a bit of a temperature discrepancy. You have cool air behind it, but you also have the cool air where it's raining. And all of a sudden you have this rushing effect on the small scale, and you'll get gusty winds going in the opposite direction that the showers or the thunderstorms would be going. So here we typically see rain moving from west to east, a typical movement of showers, of thunderstorms. So here's your profile. There's the rain, warm air out in front of it, and then the cool air falling with the rain, okay? As it evolves, you have relatively warmer and drier air on the backside, and that will intensify with the change in our temperatures as we move forward. And eventually what we're going to end up having is on the backside, this cooler air, which is more dense, will be rushing towards warmer low pressure. And that pressure gradient is what gives us those strong winds. They can be very brief, but damaging, 45, sometimes 55 miles an hour.
In Wisconsin, the spring has been wetter than usual, but the fire danger is moderate to very high in some areas. They have also seen more wildfires so far than they would in a typical year. Meteorologist Phil DeCastro explains why this is the case and what will help reduce the fire danger.
Just this Monday, a string of 11 fires scorched 23 acres along a highway near Ashland, seen here in this aerial photo. DNR wildfire prevention specialist Catherine Cooley says this is usually their busiest time of the year.
Spring is fire season in Wisconsin, and we're right at that peak of fire season, especially in the northern half of the state. Warmer temperatures, low relative humidity, and then gusty winds are really the recipe for a wildfire to occur.
While rain does help tamp down on fire danger, it's only a temporary fix this time of year. In fact, this spring has actually been wetter than average. In just Green Bay, we've received nearly 8 inches of precipitation since March 1st. That's more than 2 inches above average. It's the 12th wettest spring on record through May 7th, and Green Bay is not alone. Almost all of north central and northeast Wisconsin has seen wetter than average weather over the last 2 months. It's really only the far southwestern part of the state that's been significantly below average precipitation. The main problem, which is the typical one, is that many plants just haven't woken up yet. They're still dry and in the process of greening up. But this year, another problem is the major ice storm that we saw at the end of March and all the downed branches and trees that it left behind. Those dead fuels aren't getting any less flammable.
98% of our fires in Wisconsin are caused by people, and the majority of those are related to debris burning. And with the storm damage that we saw, especially in northeast Wisconsin, we do anticipate a lot of people outside choosing to burn those materials. And, this week, hold off on doing those burns.
Cooley says we will just have to wait for more frequent rains or for plants to finally fully green up before the fire danger will improve.
And coming up on the National Weather Desk, did you know that wildfires can burn underground? We'll show you how it happens, and we'll show you how air temperatures can impact baseball.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
A wildfire that started more than a week ago in eastern North Carolina is still burning, but mostly underground. So what does that mean, and how does a fire burn below the surface? Elena Laster finds out.
How do you fight a fire that's burning underground? According to North Carolina Forest Service hydrologist Brady Dodd, it takes a lot of water.
We're doing firefighting at putting water on the surface and getting that fire to stop spreading. We're then the fuels in the soil of the peat, but we're also raising the water table up and trying to get it from the bottom as well. So,
according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, ENC is in a moderate to severe drought, including here in Craven County. With those dry conditions, the picosans in the Croatan are drying out, making it easier for fires to smolder.
with the water tables lower and the peat soils drying out, that old vegetation layer, it of course can burn. And so what's happening is the fire's getting, it maybe start at the top, but it'll start to burn through that.
These peat layers are fully and partially decomposed plants and can be very deep.
They can be up to about 8 feet deep in places.
With that much underground space, the fire can smolder and potentially flare up again when hit with enough fuel, which is why they're working to soak the ground from above and below.
There is a network of drainage features, ditch lines, largely associated with the roads that are in here that are open now.
With previous built-in structures, they're able to control the amount of water flowing into the peats.
We put in some structures at our road crossings where the ditches are to block water when we want to and bring those water levels up inside the ditches, which will cause water to seep back into the land.
For now, the crew continues to thoroughly soak the ground through sprinklers, hoses, and various water pumps.
As spring unfolds, trees are beginning to bloom. However, experts say to get the most beauty out of your trees takes some effort. Green Bay meteorologist Audrey Lee has more.
If you notice anything dead on them, you'll want to cut that out before the tree starts really actively growing, just to clean it up and then have a healthier tree. So kind of assessing your trees for health.
Pruning helps trees grow back stronger, and spring is where they start waking up and absorbing nutrients for the season ahead.
So a lot of trees, we do treatments in the springtime before they actively start growing so they can absorb those nutrients and other products into their system, so they're more resistant to invasive insects that chew on them and can just foliate and destroy and kill your trees.
For trees, spring is where you can finally see if last summer's weather or drought left any lasting damage.
You can tell in spring sometimes if trees aren't leafing out like they normally are, or you notice a lot of branches are dead and stuff. That's usually the result of some sort of damage they sustained the previous growing season.
Staff members at the Green Bay Botanical Garden are keeping a close eye on their trees this spring to ensure a healthy start to the growing season. And for the trees in your own yard, they say a little attention now, like pruning, water, and inspecting for damage, can go a long way.
The beauty of those trees can be nice, but for some, it comes with the misery of seasonal allergies. This year, allergy season got off to an early start, and experts are warning that with a changing climate, allergy season is expected to get longer and more intense in the coming years. Barbara Morris has more.
I'm sitting in front of an oak forest.
Looks nice in the background unless you're allergic to the oak pollen.
We are in the middle of oak pollen season.
Dr. Russell Sedapane is an allergy and asthma specialist at Brown University Health's Newport Hospital.
Seasons are starting earlier now with this global warming effect.
And the science backs that up, as this graph provided by NBC 10 meteorologist Jason Dorr shows. Based on temperature trends over the last 55 years, the average growing season or allergy season in southern New England is 29 days longer. That's compared to what it was back in 1970. From trees, it's grass pollens, only weeks away.
If you start treatment 2 weeks before the season, it can make a big difference in preventing getting to this level of severity.
That may include over-the-counter allergy meds and an intranasal steroid spray like Flonase and Nasacort. Those both can go a long way. Best if used at least 2 weeks before, which means now if grass pollens is your nemesis. minimizing exposure to is crucial.
With just 10 minutes of exposure, they can have significant eye symptoms, swelling, tearing, nasal symptoms. It may last throughout the remainder of the day.
Many of us are not only enjoying the blooms this time of year, we're also heading to the ballpark to cheer on our favorite team. But did you know the temperature can play a role in the game? Meteorologist Sharon Ray explains.
First, let's talk about colder air. As you know, cold air is much denser, and as we have those more air molecules in the air, it does cause the ball to move a little bit slower because there is some drag on the ball. It has to push those air molecules away in that denser cold air. So as a home run is hit in a stadium, or it's trying to be hit, sometimes if you have the cold, heavier air, it may result in it being caught in the outfield and the player is out. Now, in the same situation, the same batter, the same conditions, let's say the air is much warmer and more humid. Well, humid air is actually much lighter than dry air. I don't know if you knew that or not. I know it doesn't feel that way, but if you have humid air, it's actually lighter because you are replacing some of the molecules of the air with water molecules, which are lighter. So as you have humid conditions and that ball is flying, the batter hits the ball into that lighter air, and it's not as heavy. It's able to go a further distance perhaps, and because there's less drag on the ball, and that results in, yay, a home run.
Well, nothing is better than sitting at a ballpark with comfortable temperatures and blue skies, but have you ever wondered what makes the sky blue? Meteorologist Teresa Carter has the answer.
The sunlight that reaches us is not just yellow or white. It is actually made up of all of the colors mixed together. If you could split sunlight apart, like with a prism, you would see a full rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Now, light travels in wavelengths. Different colors have different wave sizes. Red light has a longer wavelength. Blue and violet have much shorter wavelengths. Earth's atmosphere is made up of tiny gas molecules like oxygen and nitrogen. And when sunlight hits these tiny molecules, it scatters. Shorter wavelengths scatter more than longer ones. And out of all of the colors, blue light scatters the most in every direction. So when you look up, you're seeing blue light bouncing all around over the sky, reaching your eyes more than any other color. So sunlight, tiny air molecules, and the magic of scattering light all working together to paint the sky that beautiful blue we see every day.
And now, as we head to break, it's time to take to the sky. Today we soar over the soybean fields of Oregon.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Microbursts are often mistaken for tornadoes, and although they are not the same, they can be just as deadly. Meteorologist Steve Knight explains.
Now, as with many forms of severe weather, it all starts with a thunderstorm and water droplets and hailstones being suspended within the updraft. If dry air starts to invade the environment in or around a thunderstorm, it can cause rain to evaporate and leave behind large sections of air that are suddenly cooler than their surroundings, causing evaporative cooling. This less dense air sinks to the ground, falling faster and faster until impact. The weight of the rain and hail also contributes to the speed of a microburst. The two processes combined help create microbursts. As the air hits the ground, it's forced outward. The biggest danger posed by microbursts is their sudden, sneaky formation. Wind speeds of microbursts can reach up to 100 miles per hour or even higher, which is equivalent to an EF1 tornado. Winds this high can cause major damage to homes and other structures and level hundreds of trees.
We love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back.